Hey, so this is the first of a series of videos we're going to do, book talks, I guess is what we'll call it, right? But we're reading this book together, I'm a Church Member by Thom Rainer, and in it there's some good information as far as church membership. There might be some things that you completely agree with, there may be things you completely disagree with, and that's the whole point, right? Is we want to read it together and reflect on it in light of Scripture and see where it takes us so that we can all be better church members. Some of you might be watching this just because you saw that I was doing this, and so you thought, hey, let's check it out. Some of you might want to know more about what it means to be a church member. I've also put this to those that signed up for the new membership class. Thanks to COVID, we had to punt the gathering for that, the class for that. We'll reschedule that and figure that out later. But we're going to start with this, and we're all going to read this book together. If you come across somebody that's not reading it and they want to, tell them to let me know. I still have some copies left over. I'd be glad to get them a copy and we can read it together. So the way this format's going to work, because we can't really do a live session thanks to our horrible internet, I'm going to have these pre-recorded videos, and we'll discuss them in the comments sections, in whatever, if it's Facebook, we'll do Facebook. If it's YouTube, it's YouTube. Or if you just want to call or text and say, hey, this is what I thought about this, that's fine too. We're all still kind of figuring out how this is going to look in a lot of ways. But this is a very fluid thing. I'm leaving it open-ended, so that way, if 2-3 weeks from now they want to jump in with us, they can grab a book and they can catch up, watch some videos and that sort of thing. Hopefully each video will have a section where people have sent in questions or somebody might have really good insight, and so we'll put that in there too. I am going to do the introduction now, which is what we're doing, and then I'm also going to do chapter 1 here in a second as well. But for the introduction, right, as it gets started, some things to note. Thom Rainer was the Lifeway guru for a long time. I think he was president and CEO of Lifeway Resources for a long time. He's got 1 million books out there, and some of them are really good. So you just if you Google his name, you'll find a lot of information, is my point there. But one of the things I do like about him, as far as his books, is they're all research driven. So he doesn't just kind of shoot off at the mouth or say, well, this is what I think. There's a whole team of Lifeway researchers that they put together information and stats and whatnot, and try to get an idea of where churches are at based on what they're actually seeing and what they're actually measuring. And so you'll see that a lot in this book. But as we open up into the introduction, you get introduced to Liam and Michael, two guys that they just started meeting for breakfast, and then the conversations went from there. And a couple of takeaways. One, that's really all it takes. For anybody that's ever wondered, how do I start a Bible study? Or how do if I wanted to do one of these, home group kind of things, how does that look? It looks like just somebody saying, hey, y'all come have coffee or whatever, and let's just meet. Apparently they tried it one time and they decided to stick with it. And that's how it works. It's a very organic, there's not really an official form you got to fill out. It's just you start and you go for it. So as we go through this, you might think, well, I want to start a group. I want some people to read this with us. Do that. Start a group and y'all get together and have at it. So that'll be good. But some questions for you, right? So if you've read the introduction, then these questions will make sense. If you haven't, then I'll give you the questions now, and then you can reflect and decide what makes. Reflect on the questions as you read it. All right. So first off, in what ways have you felt like Liam? Right? When have you felt like your church or your pastor has let you down? Right? And I realize, speaking as a pastor, some of you are like, well, he doesn't really want to know what I think. I actually do, because one of the things that we all have to wrestle with is that there's people in our past that have let us down. There's people that's let me down, and I know I've let people down. Some have told me, some haven't, but it's part of life, right? It's part of being sinners that sometimes we're let down. Second, when have you felt more like Michael, right? So, Michael's really engaged with his church. He's very active in the ministries. So can you look back at a time in your life where you might have been really active in your local church? For a lot of people, that's going back to youth group, especially in my generation. When we go back, there's a lot of people at my age that we loved youth. We loved hanging out with other classmates or going to camps. and that sort of thing. So when was that for you, though? And if you think, well, I've never been to church, that's okay. That's fine. That's what we're learning together, right? But here's the question. So right? So how have you been like Liam? How have you been like Michael? But then last, think about this. What do you think makes the difference between enjoying your church and being disheartened by your church? And that is very much a loaded question for you to think about. But what makes that? What is the difference? Not necessarily whose fault it is, but what's that X factor to where you have some members that love the church, highly active in their church, and then some members that they might come Sunday morning and warm a pew, they might not. You never know, right? So what makes that difference? But I will say this, on page 6 at the top, Tom writes a wonderful statement that I'm just going to read it, and of course it's on page 6, but I want to really highlight this. It says, God did not give us local churches to become country clubs where membership means we have privileges and perks. He placed us in churches to serve, to care for others, to pray for leaders, to learn, to teach, to give, and in some cases to die for the sake of the gospel. For all his faults he might have, that is a brilliant and wonderful statement. I would argue that 90% of a lot of churches' problems have to do with members in this mentality of we're in a local, our church it's a club. They might not say it's a club. They may not, they would definitely not want to say that out loud for the most part. But in terms of practically how they treat one another in a church and how they treat going to church, they see it as a club. So that's a huge problem, right? And that's why we have books like this, right? That's so that we can reflect on how do we actually feel about our church and how do we actually believe, or what do we actually believe about our church? All right, I'm looking forward to this. This is gonna be exciting stuff. I'm gonna read this with y'all too, and just kind of, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited. So y'all have a great, wonderful day.